Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Denise and I stand here today quite angry, and I'm seldom angry in my kitchen. You see, several of my fellow officers were working an incident on the side of the highway and were smashed into by a drunk driver. To be clear, they were not from my agency, but law enforcement is one big family, and when one is hurting, we're all hurting. These men are from St. Charles and Lake St. Louis police departments, including the Lake St. Louis canine officer and a toddler in the offender's own vehicle. I'm angry because this guy has a history with the law and could have killed these men with his total disregard for human life. I'm grateful that it appears that they will all recover, including the canine. That being said, I want to give a big shout out to all the men and women of the Lake St. Louis Police Department, from all of us at SAPD. So I come to you on YouTube today to make stromboli for those of you who are still in the hospital, and for some of the officers who are covering extra shifts, because I know how that goes as well. I'll be throwing in a couple dozen fresh baked cookies. I baked those earlier today. They're my very famous chocolate chip cookies that everybody loves, so I hope those help you to heal. They're a big hit with everyone, so I hope you enjoy them. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes to set up this video and to share that story with you. So now, without further ado, let's make stromboli. We're over here at the stand mixers. I'm making 2 batches today, so I'll show you one stand mixer and I'll have my other stand mixer going over here. So what I have is a tablespoon of granulated sugar. I'm going to add a packet of instant yeast, fast rising instant yeast, and 1 1/3 cups of warm water. And this water just needs to be between 100 and 110 degrees. So I'm just going to give that a little mix. Now it's all mixed. I've opened my stand mixer. I've removed the paddle attachment, and I'm just going to cover it and let it rest for 5 minutes. And then I'll come back. Okay, 5 minutes has elapsed, and the next step in making this dough is to add olive oil, salt, and flour. Now I'm going to give all the measurements and things in the description box below, but for right now I can tell you this is 2 tablespoons of good olive oil. This is extra virgin Spanish olive oil, and I've already weighed out this flour like I always do, and the salt is already combined in here. So then I'm going to let this go for 2 minutes. I'm going to start it low and let it mix slowly. I'm getting the dough out of the bowl. So now we're going to need to turn this over a little bit, get some of that stickiness out. I like to just use a glove in the beginning to keep my hand from getting so sticky. And now I need to knead this for 3 to 4 minutes. If you've never kneaded dough before, you just bring it in, push it out, turn it a quarter turn, bring it in, push it out. If it's sticking to your hands, then it needs just a little bit more flour. But don't go overboard with the flour. You want to keep it a light dough. I'm still going on the kneading here, but I just wanted to explain the reason we're kneading. It's not to beat up the dough. We don't want to force our hand. This is just a gentle process of pushing and folding and pushing again. The purpose of kneading the dough is to develop the gluten, and that's what gives the baked goods its structure and its integrity when it's baking. It's nice therapy. I'm working out my anger as I go. I'm glad I can do this little bit for the officers who are hurting. And so now form this into a ball. So you know it's done when you can poke on it. See, if you poke it and it slowly springs back, then that's when it's ready to rise. So now the dough goes to the next part, which is rising and doubling in size. So I'll put this in a oiled bowl, I'll cover it, put it in a warm spot, and it will need to rise until it's doubled in size, which usually takes about an hour. So I'm oiling the bowl now. I just put the same olive oil in here that I used in the dough. So as you can see, I'm just working it up the side. I'm going to put the first one in here. I'm going to roll the dough around, then I'm going to cover it and put it in a warm spot. If you like to play with your food, you'll like this step. And what the oil does, it helps to lubricate the dough so it doesn't stick to the sides. If you don't do this step, then the dough could stick down on the side of the bowl and on the bottom of the bowl, and it won't rise as easily. So oiling the bowl and oiling the dough just helps it to release and rise. Okay, so here we are. Our dough has risen to double its size. So now I'm going to punch it down and bring it out of here. Put some flour down on our work surface. So the first thing I need to do is split this in half. So this is enough for 2 stromboli. And I'm going to roll this out into a 10 by 14 rectangle. All right, so we have our rectangle rolled out here, and I'm going to be brushing it with melted butter with garlic. And so now I'm just going to paint this on. It smells wonderful. So now the fun part, I'm going to lay down some pepperoni. What I do is I get the large deli pepperoni, and then I just start laying it out. I leave a little bit on the edge, a little bit of room on the edge on both sides, and then I leave some room at the top, because as I roll this up when I'm finished, it's going to push those ingredients farther and farther out. but I do like to cram in as much as I can. The recipe calls for a ½ pound of meat total. After the first meat layer, then you put cheese. This is mozzarella, a nice melty cheese. I have made these with meat and vegetables, but I tend to go overboard and my dough ripped and it wasn't a pleasant experience, but I really like these. I like the all meat ones, and that's what I'm making today because I think that's what police officers will enjoy. I went to the academy with one of the guys who, with one of the sergeants actually at Lake St. Louis. And so when I first heard about the crash, I immediately thought about my friend who I went to the academy with. And so I reached out to him right away and was grateful that it wasn't him, but was still upset about what happened and wanted right away to know what I could do. And he said, oh, there's nothing that can be done, you know, they just needed to heal. Well, I know that people like to eat, and I know that hospital food is not necessarily the best tasting food. I know they try. They have to make it basic enough for all the patients. I know I can make it taste really good, and so I wanted to do this especially for my fellow officers who are hurting and the ones who are working extra to make up the gap. And I should show you these cookies back here. I didn't have time today to go over all of the ingredients and all the steps to make the cookies too, but I'll show you that in a future video. This is dried parsley. I should have put this right on top of the butter and garlic layer, but I didn't. And whenever you're working with dried spices, like leafy spices, you want to rub those between the palms of your hands to wake those up. They've been in the container for a long time, and so you just want to wake those up. So now, the moment of truth, am I going to be able to roll this up without breaking the dough? Cross your fingers. Alright, so then I just roll it, pull it slightly, roll it, tuck in the end a little bit, and it ripped. But that's okay. I'll figure it out. I'll tuck in the ends in a minute. Okay, so now let me bring this over to the baking sheet, and some cheese is trying to escape over here, and it's the Parmesan, and I don't want that to happen. That's the best tasting one in there. So this is the egg wash. This is just a beaten egg with a tablespoon of water. This just helps to coat the outside and give it a nice golden brown color. And this is Italian seasoning. I always try to put some of this on top. And once again, this is a dried leafy spice, so I'm crushing it as I go. And this is my new favorite knife. See this? Beautiful, isn't it? I was really disappointed that it came with a cardboard sheath. The things companies do to save money. Anyway, cut a few vent holes. This is important. You don't want it to explode in the oven. All right, so here's the first stromboli. It's out of the oven, and it is nice and crusty and smells amazing. It's blazing hot right now, so I'm going to let it rest and let the juices come together, and then I'll cut into this and I'll taste it for you. But for right now, I have the difficult task of waiting. Okay, so here we are. Back for the taste test. It's my favorite part. It's still quite hot. And I'm going to take this one. Oh, look how gooey that is. It's so gooey and lovely. Here we go. Oh my God. This is something you have to eat. It's like a foodgasm. It's amazing. Look at that cheese, the crust. Look at the crust. It's incredible. All that meat. I taste the heat from the salami. Correction, I taste the heat from the pepperoni, the spiciness. I taste the Parmesan cheese. I have the mouthfeel from the mozzarella and the provolone cheese. Nice and smooth in my mouth. I can taste the ham, obviously, in the meat. But this crust is really nice. You can use this dough by itself for pizza. You can make bread out of it, breadsticks, things like that. I really hope the officers like this. I hope the people at the police department like it. I feel a lot better now. Not quite as angry. Well, yes I am. But I'm glad I got up and did something about it today. Even though it's just a little small part of the bigger picture. I didn't just sit around stewing about it. I actually did something. Thank you as always for joining me in my kitchen today. I appreciate it if you'll throw up a prayer and some positive vibes for the officers who were hurt from St. Charles Police Department and from the Lake St. Louis Police Department. It's a tough job we have out there. And I'm just so glad that they weren't hurt worse than they were. So I hope you all get back to work soon. I hope you have full recoveries, and I'll see you next time in my kitchen. Until then, be safe and be well.